Hey listener, welcome to 1000 Routes. I'm your host, Nick Bennett. In each episode, we explore the uncommon paths of solopreneurs who have bet on themselves and the reality of what it takes to build a business that serves your life. Enjoy the episode.
Maybe it was 2022. I don't even know, but I had been creating content for a while, and I like my LinkedIn following wasn't like super big or anything, but I made a post because I was like an SDR or maybe an SDR manager at the time. It was just a post about how to like get somebody's number. It was shitty advice. Like, sometimes when you're an SDR, you have to cross the line to figure out where the line is. And that was one of those examples of like, you're going to do some things that'll piss people off. So the advice was you should call somebody's colleague intentionally and say, hey, I thought this was Nick. Like, let's say I'm calling your colleague, Nick. And then they'll say like, oh, no, sorry, this isn't Nick. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, what's his number? I was trying to call him. And then they'll give you his number and then you can find him. And so it was like dumb advice. It was whatever. And so then some dude screenshotted that and then basically turned that into how I'm a predator with people and said that this is predatory behavior and basically accused me of things that I won't say on a podcast and say that those are traits of somebody who's just a bad person, but like really ripped into me. And ultimately ended up being a good thing because that post blew up and a bunch of people came to my defense and were like, no, it's not a big deal. And then I actually got like a big following from that because it was just a funny thing. And the guy was just super unhinged. So ultimately it was a good thing. Good press, all press is good press or whatever they say.
I guess so, man. Dude, I remember now that you're describing the situation, I recalled those details, but I remember seeing this and I'm not in tech and I'm not in like outbound or anything like that. I'd been in that role a long time ago and for a very short period of time. I just remember being like, scratching my head being like, I can see how it works.
Yeah.
I can see that working. But yeah, so that's how I first came across you and your content and stuff. So a trip down memory lane. So let's unpack this. And I think your route is fascinating to me. So you came up through PandaDoc pretty fast too. I think in like 2.5 years, you went from SDR to like a global manager of outbound sales, like, which is kind of ridiculous when you think about the short amount of time that really is. Then you take the leap to Mailshake, you go in outbound sales, director of sales. Tell me about the turning point for you. Like you're blowing up. Then you decide to go solo. Like walk me through that moment where you decided, I'm done working for other people. It's time to take a bet on this practical prospecting thing.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to join PandaDoc because the company was growing really fast right when I joined and they didn't have outbound in place. And so I didn't really have a life either. So I had moved to Florida and I was like here alone, didn't have friends. And so it was like, I really just tried to figure out, like, I was like really trying to study the outbound stuff and try to make it work, which is how I got promoted fast. Obviously got lucky because the company was growing. So that was a really good opportunity. I started creating a newsletter while I was at PandaDoc with the stuff I was doing, which is how the CEO of Mailshake found me. And that was one of those opportunities. It was like, hey, I could have full control over the entire sales team. I can build it from scratch how I want it. And the pay was much better. So it was kind of a no-brainer decision to go do that. But it was a very small startup, right? Bootstrap startup, great company, love the founder, like great people, all of that. Completely different environment though. And so I really learned a lot in that year and a half. And it's also a lot of pressure when you're reporting directly to the CEO and there's not like 3 layers of management between you and, the executives. All that pressure is on you. You know what I mean? If you mess up, that's on you. There's no person above that you can kind of like blame or take part of the weight. And so if I'm being honest, man, like that did start to take a toll on me a little bit. And it was getting me really stressed out. And as much as we were doing fine. Like we weren't like overly succeeding. We weren't failing either. It was also a really tough time to sell in a tough market. We were selling in the sales engagement space. And anyways, I had been building up this newsletter and some of these side projects for a little while. And through sharing this content, through this newsletter, people started proactively reaching out to me and saying, hey, like, do you do consulting? Do you do like lead gen? Do you do content? So just opportunities started coming at me just through LinkedIn and through the newsletter. And so I figured like, hey, I'm still young. This is something that I really enjoy. And so I started kind of building it up a little bit over 6 months. And it got to a point where I was like, hey, I think I could build this into something bigger than what I currently have, like income wise and also happiness wise. And so I kind of took the bet and went full time. It was definitely a risky decision because it was a good salary. I wasn't really necessarily at risk of losing my job. but it just felt right, like the right decision. And I guess what, 9 months later, 8, 10 months later, I would say it was definitely a really good decision. And yeah, we can unpack that further, but that's pretty much the overview of how it all happened.
So how did you end up writing on LinkedIn and launching the newsletter?
So I'd always loved writing. It really goes back to a program I did. I didn't go to college. I did like a program, a tech boot camp, not tech sales necessarily, but they teach you how to be a professional and find careers at startups. And a big part of that was writing because it's such an important part, whether you're in sales, marketing, et cetera. And so through that, I started a blog. And then when I got into sales, I used a tool called Substack, which I still use. And it's really easy to start up a quick newsletter, and just started writing weekly about the things I was learning. And I just made it a habit. Like if I write once a week about the things I'm learning, I'll retain information better, and it'll force me to try to learn new things. And then I did that newsletter since like early 2019. Then I have to shout out one of my good friends, Patrick Downs, who was sales enablement over at PandaDoc, who was like doing stuff on LinkedIn. And he ran a training at PandaDoc saying like how impactful it can be, not just for your brand and stuff, but for also getting deals and getting opportunities. And so, I naturally liked writing, and I was already doing stuff in the newsletter. And so I just said, let me chop up the stuff that I'm writing in my newsletter and use that as a LinkedIn post. And then it was just like consistency. Like I didn't really see any sort of impact from either the newsletter or LinkedIn, probably until after like a year of consistently writing. But then once I started to see the impact, that's where I started to double down a little bit more. But like you have to enjoy the writing process and enjoy the creating process to actually see the results, because it just takes so long before, at least in my opinion, it takes so long before you see real results that you have to like really enjoy the process before it becomes, fruitful.
Yeah. How did you get the practical prospecting angle, or that as a thing? Was the newsletter always that, or did it become that?
No, the newsletter had a different name. I think it was just like Jed's weekly newsletter. Like what happened was the newsletter was never intended to be like what it is now. It was literally just supposed to be a way for me to document the things I was learning. And, after year one of writing my newsletter every week, I had maybe 100 subscribers, and most of those were like colleagues and friends. But then there was like a turning point where I got to like 1,000 subscribers in like a couple months. And then I started seeing that people were enjoying the things that I was reading. So then I was like, let me come up with a name and an actual brand and an actual like identity for the newsletter. And practical prospecting just rolled off the tongue. And I think one of the things that has always helped me when it comes to sales is that like I try to simplify things as much as possible. And I think that's why people like my content, is because it's very simple and tactical. There's not a lot of like fluff to it or whatever. And I try to think from the SDR's perspective, because that's who I was, in terms of like what can they actually control, right? They can't go spend thousands of dollars on tech. They can only control what they have available to them. And so I try to keep things very practical and simple. And all the tips were things that anybody can use in any environment. And so that's really where like the name or the identity of the newsletter and the brand came from.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people, they strive to get all that stuff figured out before they ever hit publish for the first time.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to think through and just kind of reveal some of these things, because it's important. I'm guilty of doing this myself, right? It's like you try to have your logo and your style and kind of whatever it is that you're trying to achieve completely baked. And the reality is the things that it's almost like the more you plan it, the less successful it's going to be. It's like you iterated your way here. And that's what it took to build this. I think what do you have, like almost 20,000 subscribers now to that newsletter. So it's wild, man. But that is crucial to the iteration, and the aeration of all these ideas is crucial to actually get into something that you can leave your job and do. And I don't think you started this with the intention of saying like, maybe one day this will be a business.
Yeah. Yeah, not at all. That was not the intention at all. And I think that was a good thing, because I just enjoyed it for what it was. And so then when it became a business, it was much easier to continue doing it, because I already enjoyed it and without getting paid a dime.
So when you decided that you were going to leave Mailshake, go out on your own and kind of bring practical prospecting forward as a company, as a business, provide services and do a bunch of different stuff, like there must have been a moment where when you decided to take this leap that you second guessed yourself. So like, what kind of things were you questioning in that moment? How did you work through that?
Yeah. So I already had like a small income coming in before I quit. It wasn't even half of what my salary was, but it was enough to where like I was good for a second. but I knew if I had more time, I could really make shit happen and actually like match my salary or go higher. And I would say the first week, and this probably happens to a lot of people, like you're super excited, you're going to get a bunch of stuff done. But then like, it was probably like the second and third week where I was like, wow, my calendar is wide open and I can really do anything with my time. Cause like, when you first start in that business, you're first doing it, like you don't have clients, you don't have shit. Like, you have to make your own schedule and you just have a wide open calendar. Nobody else is controlling that. I had a lot of like major anxiety in the first like couple months and a lot of second guessing. And there was like a few things. Actually, I'm going to pull it up because I still have it written on my my desktop to this day. And these things really helped me. And some people might call it corny. I don't care. It helped me and it still helps me. And so like the things I told myself every day was like, it's supposed to be hard. I'm going to fail. But if other people have done it, I can definitely do it too, right? It's just a matter of like a knowledge gap. I just need to learn the knowledge or fail enough times. And then the last one is consistency and boring tasks is the most important thing, like to make it successful. When I say consistency and doing the boring tasks, I mean like making sure I'm doing the content every single day, making sure I'm reaching out to people and doing cold outbound consistently every single day, following up with people, studying and learning how to be better at what I'm trying to build. And so like those sort of things really helped me. And ultimately when I felt that kind of anxiety, I moved forward to action. And I think what happens too is when you first start to like build your own business, you're like, what is the best possible thing I can do? Or like you have all these different things that you could potentially spend your time on. And you don't know where to prioritize. And that really slowed me down a lot. And what kind of got me out of that, I was like, I'm just going to do shit for 8 hours a day and things will start to build up. Like I'm not going to overanalyze all these ideas and all these possible things I can do. I'm just going to be doing stuff and just knocking out tasks and things will build up from there. So yeah, that's kind of how I saw it.
Dude, the simple but hard, like basics over a long period of time. And I think your newsletter, like that was baked in you long before you went out on your own. And I think whether you realized it or not, or looking back, it becomes obvious, but the basics over a long period of time is what makes you successful in this kind of work. And I think you said something like, you're going to fail 100%. I had Max Trailer on the second episode and he was like, failure is the process.
Yeah.
Like you have to fail in order to figure these things out. And so going into it with that mindset of I'm going to go through these cycles versus trying to force success and circumvent failure is kind of a plan to fail in the first place, right? It's like if you're trying to avoid failure, you're not going to take enough risk to figure out to do something that works. And then if you're not doing the basics, you're going to overshoot a lot of the simple things that make a massive impact, like writing every day or writing every week. So that's a common theme of a lot of the people I'm talking with who see early success doing this stuff. So it's just good to have more people reinforcing that. But so when you did this, right? So you go through this whole process and you're out on your own, you're trying to figure it out. Now you have multiple revenue channels. And so kind of talk me through what came up first, what worked well in the early days and what didn't.
Yeah. So just through my content, through my newsletter, I had a lot of people or not a lot, but a healthy amount of people that were reaching out saying like, hey, will you write email templates for us? Will you train our SDR team? Will you write my newsletter? Like just little projects and stuff. And so my initial mindset was like, I don't really know what I'm going to be best at, or I don't have a business model yet, but I'm just going to start saying yes to all these opportunities and accept the fact that I'm going to be extremely busy for a few months because I'm taking on all these different projects and working with all different types of clients, and they have complete control, which maybe in hindsight isn't necessarily the best advice that I would give, but like it worked for me. And again, I had the luxury of already like having content where people like were familiar with that. So I understand not everybody has that, but I just kind of like made it apparent that I was open to work and open to helping people in whatever way that was. And so the first couple of months was like, I was working with like 10 different people and I was doing 10 different things for all 10 different people. Like I was ghostwriting, writing sequences, training, consulting, running cold outbound campaigns for people. And I did that for a few months. And what that gave me was like experience in a bunch of different areas. It helped me figure out really quickly what I do like and what I don't like. It helped me figure out what types of companies I like to work with, whether they're smaller companies, bigger companies, whether I'm working with the founders, the sales team. I just was like documenting all the different things I was doing and just saying, yeah, I do like this. I don't like that. And then also with all those early clients, I just really tried to go above and beyond with them because those are the people that to this day, like continue to refer me people and things of that nature. and tried to get testimonials from them that I could use, whether that be on a website or in a sales deck and things of that nature. And so that's what the initial process was just saying yes to literally everything, accepting the fact I'm going to be super busy. And then after a couple months or 3 months of doing that, I said, okay, here's what I like, here's what I don't like, and then doubled down on the stuff that I like the most.
What was the process for acquiring those first clients?
So
you said that you had a decent amount of inbound, but like, what was that process really like?
Yeah, again, I acknowledge that I was very like fortunate because of the content, where it was like getting the clients wasn't necessarily the hard part because I had been so consistent with the content, but it was more so just people like that would just hit me up on LinkedIn and say like, hey, do you do consulting? Or like, hey, I have an SDR team. Do you want to train them? I'd jump on a call. I'd say, sure. What are you looking to do? We'd scope it out, and I'd just throw out a price. And I usually undercut myself a lot in the beginning. But there was times I did do some cold outbound as well, because like once I started to figure out the clients I did like, you can't control what comes inbound to you. I started doing some more targeted outreach, and that in the beginning, I'm sure a lot of your podcast listeners, I know you've heard of it, $100 million offers, Alex Hormozi, that guy. I took a lot of his advice where it was just like, let me make an offer that people can't refuse. It's like a few people I said, let me work for free for you for a month. And I just cold emailed the companies that I really thought I could help. And just offered to like run their cold email campaigns for a month. And a lot of those people turned into paid clients, or a couple of them did. And so that was a big thing as well, is for the clients that I really wanted to work with that weren't coming inbound. I just sent like cold emails, full DMs, asked for introductions, and just said like, I'll work for you for free for a month. If it works well, I'm great. You can start paying for me, or you can start paying me. If not, no worries.
There's a lot of people there's a lot of mixed reviews on doing free work. I am in those early days. I think it saved me, helped me work out a lot of kinks in my own way. There's a lot of advice of people saying like, no, you got to charge what you're worth. You're not valuing yourself and your time and all this stuff. I mean, how did you decide? You said, that's a Hormozi. I never read $100 million offers. I know what it is, but like, is that a Hormozi thing where it's like, just work for free?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like his thing, but like he definitely talks a lot about that. Whereas like if you don't have any business or any clients, like just start by doing that, because it's like one of the easiest way to get clients. And like if you're providing value to them, and then you say, okay, I'm done working for free, they'll pay you. You know what I mean? Like that's the idea behind it. How did I decide? Honestly, man, it was a lack of confidence. Like I think I could have just started charging from the beginning, but I didn't have confidence in myself because I hadn't started my own business or really done things on my own. And so I figured like, hey, if I'm working for somebody for free, there's no pressure on me, because they're not paying me. So I don't feel this pressure, and I can make mistakes and figure things out. And actually, now that I'm thinking about this, Nick, when I was working at Mailshake, I took on like a few free clients while I was still at Mailshake to just like validate that I could do some of these things. And then some of those turned into paid clients. So I did that while I was still on my W-2, which afforded me the luxury of like not needing the money at that time because I was still getting paid. And then obviously I just had to work more hours, like weekends and later at night and stuff. But that did give me some extra time. So to answer your question, long story short, I just didn't have the confidence, and that gave me the confidence. But I don't think it's always necessary,
Dude, I just want to like highlight a moment here, which I think is super important. Something like 20,000 email subscribers, like 40,000 on LinkedIn, head of global outbound for a company like PandaDoc, director of sales for a company like Mailshake. And even still, it's possible to go out on your own or to start thinking about doing this and not feel like you have the confidence to charge or that you can create value for people. Like there's no amount of followers or any of these things that's going to set anybody up to feel that they're good enough or they're worth it. Like it's got to it comes from inside, and it was like whatever you had to do to get there.
Yeah, man, 100%. Like I completely agree with you. And I had like people telling me like, and you, like when we started working together too, like you can charge more, it really just has to come from yourself.
Yeah. But I think the thing that matters more is that you end up getting there. So we talked about, you started building out your services stuff, but writing on LinkedIn for a while, like this opened up a ton of different opportunities for you. And I think some people see a bunch of revenue streams and they get either overwhelmed or they get over rotated and trying to grow all of them at once. Did you end up growing these things in any particular order? And like, what was the smoothest thing? There's a lot of misconceptions, right? Most people will tell you like, I want to build a course. And I'm like, don't build a course.
Yeah.
You can't reach enough people. But I know you have a course, you've been doing brand deals, sponsorships and things like that. You're part of the Sell Better team and you do a lot of content and stuff with them. So like, how do you look at your revenue streams and kind of what you're building in that way?
Yeah, I think I was definitely focusing on too many revenue streams in the beginning. I'm gotten it better now. Like the first thing I started doing was sponsorships and stuff through my newsletter and through LinkedIn. And I didn't start that until people started asking, like, "Hey, do you do?" Like I just created content consistently for a long enough period of time until people said, like, "Hey, do you do sponsorships on your newsletter? Do you do sponsorships on LinkedIn?" And so that was really smooth because once I started finding the products I liked, and that was a pretty consistent revenue stream, and I started to learn that. And we can talk about that in a little bit more depth. So those are the main ones, is like content and sponsorships. Another thing that I had been doing for a while as well is because I'm connected with a lot of different, or my audience is salespeople, right? And because I'm doing sponsorships with a lot of sales tools, sales software and stuff, I started doing like partnership deals. So it was like, whenever I'd recommend, I'd get a piece of whatever those people bought, right? Like 10%, for example. And that was like another revenue stream that's like very effortless. You just refer or send them your affiliate link or whatnot. And that it's hard to do right, but you can make a lot of money without a lot of effort if you're just the person that connects people to the company and get that, that kind of affiliate revenue. So that was kind of the next thing that I started to build up. And then after that, it was more so just like retainers for consulting or content or the different things I was doing. Because not the case anymore, but when I first started, I was doing sales content for companies. I was running cold email campaigns for them as like a lead gen service, and then also doing consulting. And so those were 3 different revenue streams that all were very mediocre. Because I was trying to focus on all 3 at once, I couldn't really kill it in any area. Recently and over the last, since basically the beginning of this year, that's changed quite a bit. But yeah, those are like the different revenue streams.
Which one's been the most fulfilling for you to run?
Definitely the content stuff and the sponsorships and all that, just because I've always wanted to be in marketing from the very beginning. I never wanted to get into sales. And so like writing and content and the whole creative side of things is the most fulfilling for me. So yeah, definitely that. It just took me a while to realize that.
Yeah, it's like all the best salespeople are like really great at marketing.
Yeah.
You get to do both because you get paid like a salesperson. Marketers want to be paid like salespeople.
Yeah, exactly.
I've spent a large chunk of my career in marketing, and they're all wondering like, why do salespeople get paid that much? You got to go get a sales job, and then you'll quickly realize why. So, what are you working on right now that's really exciting to you?
Yeah, so you mentioned it earlier, but Sell Better is basically a company that I partner with that I've been working with since like 2021. And I'm working with them pretty closely because what they're doing, what I'm doing is very similar. So I have practical prospecting, the newsletter, LinkedIn content, all that stuff. It's sort of like its own mini media business, if you will. Sell Better is a pretty decent sized sales media company. They run a daily sales show and they do in-person events. They have a newsletter, all of that stuff. There's a lot of money to be made when it comes to sponsorships, right? Like if you have an audience in the B2B space, a lot of people obviously want to pay to get in front of that audience. And so a lot of what I'm doing is creating content both for my newsletter and for Sell Better, but because we're talking about similar things, they kind of merge together, and it's something fulfilling on both sides. And then also bringing in sponsorship deals. So I will I'll network and talk to these different sales tech companies, bring them in to sponsor some of the Sell Better content as well as my newsletter. And whereas before it was more like one-off LinkedIn posts, one-off newsletters, I'm doing big content campaigns where it's like, we're going to get you on X number of shows. We're going to do an event. We're going to do this newsletter, my newsletter. And it's a big kind of like holistic campaign that we're doing that's, over a 3-month period, for example. And that's really fulfilling to me because, again, I love the content side of things. I get to work with Sell Better that has a lot more resources when it comes to just creating content. Like they have a film crew, all that stuff to help me create better content and things of that nature. And so that's probably the most exciting project that I'm working on right now in terms of what I'm doing. That's kind of the main thing.
So how'd you get plugged in with Sell Better in the first place, though?
Yeah, so it was really my newsletter, man. A lot of the opportunities have come from the newsletter. Their CEO found my newsletter, asked me to come on one of their webinars. I was extremely nervous on the webinar because they do really big ones, but he thought it was good. And then he asked me to come back on a few more. And then it was a gradual relationship. He said, hey, like, do you want to start writing a newsletter? We'll pay you X. And then it went from, do you want to start writing, our email marketing copy? We'll pay you this much more. And then like more and more opportunities came as I progressed with the company. And so, yeah, just another one of those opportunities that came kind of inbound just through content and things I was putting out there.
I feel like there's a reoccurring theme here with all the stuff that you're doing, which is it is like very slow growing or like very organically evolves. And I brought this up earlier. It's like there's this notion we got to launch with everything all buttoned up and in place. Yep. And it seems like the most critical decision, and tell me if I'm reading this right, it's like the most critical decision you've made in all of this is a lot of just like saying yes to a ton of opportunities, even the ones that don't have everything totally figured out yet.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's two things. It's like consistently doing the things that will have a long-term impact, which for me has been like writing and building a brand and content, and then just like not being afraid to say yes to all these different opportunities, even if they aren't perfect. Like in a way, man, I think my lack of confidence did help me a little bit because I was just like saying yes to things that like maybe I shouldn't have, but it exposed me to like things that or like saying yes to opportunities that maybe should have asked for more money or whatever. But that allowed me to like take some more less pressure on and just like slowly figure things out at my own pace. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally, man. There's a set of limiting beliefs that we all have that no matter what level of success you think or you feel that you've achieved, that you're not going to be good enough. And the fact that you had you were really willing to do whatever it takes, whether it was work for free, take on any type of work. Like there's so many people who feel like some element of this work might be beneath them. They might not. I spent years as an SDR. I don't want to do that work anymore. I didn't go out on my own to do that work. Things like that. Or if there's no big campaign already created, you don't want to be a part of it. You're not going to be a part of something that doesn't have a bigger scope or whatever the thing is, right? And it's like there's these limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves. That's like if we don't have these things, I don't know if it's a limiting belief, but there's this feeling that if things aren't figured out, that it's not going to work. And it's like, I think some of the best things are coming from this. Like the fact that you don't have it all figured out gives you the room to find out what's going to work in a way that takes all the pressure off. You can build a business.
Yeah, man. No, I completely agree. It may have seemed, or maybe from the outside, that like I just kind of like left Mailshake and did this full time or whatever, but like just slowly building and not feeling like I had the pressure of having to replace my salary and building it up slowly while I was working at W2 definitely helped to like relieve that pressure, so I didn't have to just like go full steam and figure everything out right away. So yeah, that's another big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all feel that pressure. So aside from just trying to replace your salary, what are some other what are other pressures you felt, or what are some other things that were kind of weighing on you as you made that transition?
I think there's a lot. It might just be in our space, Nick, or like the LinkedIn space or whatever. There's a real negative stigma of people that like try to go work for themselves, where it's like, oh, you think you're an expert or whatever. Like you don't have enough experience to go do that. You got to work your way up to CRO and do that for 10, 15, 20 years before you can actually like give any advice or go out on your own, that sort of thing. And so there was a lot of like, like my own like public perception of like, I didn't want to be viewed as somebody who just like got tired of working in a sales job and wanted to go do their own thing. So like that public perception, or like the public idea of failing, right? Like saying I was going to go out on my own and then like 6 months later saying, hey, I'm looking for another job. So like that was that was probably the second biggest thing besides replacing my salary. I mean, those are the two biggest things that I thought about a lot. And also like with your family as well, and like, and friends and things of that nature. Like you don't want to be looked at as a failure or whatnot. So yeah, I mean, that's a big thing. I don't know if you can relate to that at all, but I'm sure a lot of people do as well. Like that's
definitely, dude. I mean, we've talked about this before. Like I didn't make the choice to go out on my own in the traditional sense. Like it wasn't one day where I was like, okay, the time's come, I'm gonna leave my job, I'm trying to do this thing. Like there was a restructure. I didn't have a job and I decided I had a kid and a wife and a house and all the things. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to earn money to live my life. And you take one look at a job posting with 2,000 applicants and you're like, that's not going to work. So
Yeah.
we're going to figure something else out. So, but yeah, I mean, being able to provide and earn an income, huge weight on the shoulders, being able to not fail, right? To not let down the people around you or the people who believe in you it has a weight, most certainly. And then there's the element of like all the other little mechanics of starting a company, all the little things that come with starting a business. You're like, you got to figure out your taxes, you got to figure out
Yeah.
compliance and what liability you do or don't have, and tech and all the stuff that is not being good at outbound sales.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's a huge part of it. I don't think I totally underestimated. It's just like, yeah, sending invoices, following up on invoices, taxes, bank stuff, just staying organized. Like when you're working with lots of clients, like you have to be super organized. Like all that stuff is really highlighted, and it's just like so important. And you're wearing a million hats if you're trying to run your own business, and that can get really, really overwhelming. Yeah, I completely agree.
And I agree with you what you said earlier about there's this like stigma that, especially with people who are well known on LinkedIn, it's like, oh well, that's just like the thing you do. You build up a following and you go out on your own. Like you leave your job and you go out on your own.
Yeah,
And I think we've all been like convinced of this idea that it is you're going to be successful if you have a massive audience. And I think that the odds of you being successful are higher. Like it makes things easier. You have the ability to reach people. And I think that's one of the main things that holds a lot of people back, is that they don't have the ability to reach people in the same way that you do. But that doesn't change the fact that you still have to figure out all these other things and have the confidence to go out there and do it. And so the LinkedIn like brainwashing that takes place
yeah,
is like, because everyone, you see a lot of people do it, and it's not I think everyone wants to build in public. And I was talking about this with Erica Schneider on here a few weeks ago. She was like, there's this idea of building in public, which is more just winning in public. There's a lot of people who don't truly build in public. And there's a lot of this idea of you're going to fail.
yeah.
And you only see the highlight reel when you see people building stuff on LinkedIn. So it's a totally different experience. And I think what you're highlighting is like, it's not all that.
I like the idea, like building in public. The way it was praised to me when I started like doing content or writing publicly, it was like learning out loud. And I think that basically that means just whatever you're learning, share, whether it's good or bad. And that takes a lot of pressure off. And I think you're better off building an audience that way, because people connect with you in a more genuine way. If you're just like not trying to come across as an expert, you're just, again, learning out loud. That helped me a lot as well. I think that's a good way to look at it.
This is perfect, because most people will see building in public and what you're doing and learning out loud, and they're going to go, how am I supposed to create all these new frameworks and teach people all these new things? And you're like, and these are things that everybody inherently knows. And you're saying, just who gives a shit? Just write about what you just figured out. And if you just figured it out, like other people don't know it either. No, don't know yet either.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like you can't. Yeah, like there's just gonna be people who'll see your content and like already know that, right? Like you're creating content or you're putting stuff out there for the people that are like 1 to 5 steps behind you. You know what I mean? And that's like the only way you got to focus or think about it. At least that's the way I tried to frame it.
I totally relate with that one. Everyone's an expert, or everyone needs somebody who is. You mentioned the CRO. This is such a great example. People are like, oh, you can't go out on your own. Like you haven't cut your teeth as a CRO for this long. Not everybody needs to learn from or hire or be around a CRO. They need somebody who's like an SDR needs an SDR manager, someone who is just an SDR, who gets what they're going through, who's doing the work, who's in it, and it's really fresh to them. The person who's 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of them. And I think that's a great way to look at it. And that was one of the ways that I looked at it myself early on. I was like, I'm not going to go out here and try to like convince CEOs of $100 million, whatever, multi-million-dollar companies that I know something that they don't, or something. Like it doesn't, there's plenty of people trying to do that. They don't need anything from me. The people who need to hear what I have to say are, like you said, a couple steps behind you. And those are the people that we're more interested in learning from, because they just went through the thing that you're trying to figure out. And so I think that's why people came to you and they were like, hey, can you help us build an outbound program. It's like you're a few steps ahead of us. You just did this a few times. You've hired people, like, all the mechanics and all the stuff. You shortcut their process. Your role is to help them circumvent problems before they happen. In all of this.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I completely agree. That's why I think it doesn't matter at what stage in your career you are. If you're like going to try to go on your own and whether it's like a consulting thing or whatever it is you're trying to do, like, even if you're an SDR who's been an SDR for a year, like, you can help people who are trying to become SDRs for the first time, right? Like, if there's always somebody a few steps behind you that you can help. I guess the only benefit of being in that position longer is that, like, maybe the more you climb the ladder, the more you do, the people who are a few steps behind you have more money to pay you, right? Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I guess that's the one benefit, right? Is like to your point, like, if you're working up to, like, if you're a CEO of a $1 billion company, then obviously those people that you're going to be helping have more money to pay you and you can make more. But it's like, that's, I guess, a nuance to it, but there's no stage at which you can't help somebody. And one thing you always said too is, like, you only need 10 to 20 really good clients, like 10 to 20 out of the 7 billion people in the world. Like, those are the people that you got to find. And that's how that's all you need.
Totally. And I think too, it's like the mechanics, as you climb the ladder, as you go up, the mechanics of your business change because there are fewer people. There are way fewer CROs than there are SDRs. So the economics change and the value changes. So, and the things that you do to serve those people change. Like, you probably won't serve every SDR one-to-one, right? Courses exist, cohorts exist. There's high-ticket hybrid service models that exist so that you can serve more people. You change the mechanics and you change the structure of what you're trying to do based on who it is. Like, CROs are probably not going to do some sort of group coaching or they're not going to take a course in the same way that an SDR would. And so the ticket and the private consulting and all of that stuff changes. And I think it's just an important nuance that people just seem to forget about. Is like, there are just fewer of them and that's okay. But you're not going to be people always make fun of, like, the LinkedIn influencers, like 22 years old, trying to tell CEOs of startups and all these, like, venture-backed companies how to run their business. It's like, wrong direction, dude. Wrong direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, so after all this that you've done in this, that you're building, I mean, why is this meaningful to you in the first place?
Okay, so selfishly, like, the freedom and flexibility I have, like, the one thing that I hate more than anything about being in a corporate environment is a good friend of mine phrased it to me. What is it? OPM, other people's meetings. So what I hate more than anything, I think it's really good to know what you hate and what you like about work. And one thing I hate more than anything is other people's meetings. So, like, being in meetings where you're not getting anything done, and I despise that. And so now I don't have to do that, right? Like, I am in control of the meetings that I'm in and that I do. So that's what, like, motivates me, or what I guess is like my own freedom and flexibility. Obviously, a level of control over my income, but then also, like, the stuff that I'm doing now is just more fulfilling. Like, I don't know. I had a realization, this is getting kind of philosophical maybe, but, like, I had a realization that I don't want to sell sales technology to other sales technology companies for them to sell their sales technology to other sales technology companies. I don't want to look back in 10 years and realize, like, I've just been helping people sell shit to other people so they can sell more shit to other people. And it's like none of this has an impact on anything else in the world. We're all just in this bubble. And so I realized, like, that was not fulfilling to me at all. But now I'm helping, it's like in a different way, right? Like, the content stuff is it's more fulfilling to me. I am, I'm working closer with, like, founders and people who are, like, and actually having an impact on their business and not just, like, selling them a piece of technology. So nothing against people selling sales technology or software and stuff like that. Just wasn't something that I particularly got fulfilled from. And it's just a good feeling, man, when you actually help somebody make more money, you know what I mean? And I was like, that's just a side that you don't get from many other places.
Totally, man. You talked about, SDRs don't have as much money as CEOs and all that stuff. It's like, people told me I was crazy for trying to work with solopreneurs. They were like, solopreneurs don't have any money. It's like, yeah, they do. You just can't see it. And my ability, you're talking about, what I'm hearing here is impact. Like, your ability to make an impact on people.
Yeah.
And do something worth doing, do something that you feel like only you can do to fulfill that need and that urge is really powerful. And hey, there's nothing wrong with selling sales technology to people. It's an admirable profession and career. People
Yeah.
people need to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot to be learned in an environment like that, and that's good. That's okay. What I'm hearing is like your ability to make an impact is meaningful, and that was the same thing. I made a similar decision when I chose to work primarily with solopreneurs. It's like I can make a way bigger impact, and I can change the mechanics in the way that I operate to do that stuff. So that resonates with me a lot. Is that doing this work in a way that allows you to just go beyond one sale with a certain number of seats at a time type of thing, and just saying like, yeah, can I truly help other people make more money and stuff like that. It changes stuff, man. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, man. Like I respect, like there's nothing, some people just want to get their paycheck and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. They're like, yeah, when you get those messages or you help somebody close a big deal or get, raise their next round or whatever, like that is a really good feeling. So I definitely value that.
Well, someone taught me this or told me this framework a long time ago, and I think it came from Kim Scott, Radical Candor, stuff like that. I think it's a framework from there, but I learned it from a coworker a while back, and she basically was like, there's two types of career trajectories, right? There's a really steep career trajectory where you're moving up the ranks really, really fast, and you want to take on new challenges, and you want to do all these new and different things. You want to show up to work every day and not really know the answers. Then there's like this superstar mentality. And then there's this rock star like mentality, which is you go really, really deep. You are like guru status in your seat. You are like, I think she calls it like the Rock of Gibraltar type of thing. And she's like, you are the anchor of your department. The person who's been there for 20 years in that role, they know all the ins and outs and all the nuances. And as the seasons of life come and go, this coworker who was telling me about it, she was like, I was that superstar for a really long time, really steep, hopping from job to job, trying to do all these things that have never been done inside the company before. She goes, the day I got pregnant and I realized I didn't want all that anymore.
Yeah.
I wanted to just anchor into what I was doing and be really, really great at that and be known for being really, really great at that. And then I want to go home and not think about it. And I want to be with my family and stuff. And it just changes stuff. And I think that there's room in life for both seasons, and that stuff is going to come and go. But it's just the ability to act on it is really the more important thing. Like she made this realization and it changed her life. And then when she told me about it, it put all of the decisions I made into perspective. And what you're saying is you're following a similar gut check, whether or not it's intentional. So
yeah, man. Yeah.
All right, bro. One last thing for you before we roll today. What do you want to build that you haven't built yet?
I really do want to build, like, part of what I really like about working with Sell Better is that I get to see what like a really well professional built media company is like, right? Like I'm not responsible for everything, but I get to be really on the inside of that and see how that's all built out. My own media company that's not SaaS or B2B sales related. Like just I had other interests, and I think that I can take the things I'm learning from content and writing and build something in a completely different niche eventually. I'm really interested in like video content, video editing, all that sort of stuff. And so I'm taking what I'm learning now and over the next several years and can hopefully build something in other interests. I would love, like my ultimate goal is to build a media company around something else where I have other interests. And so that's what I want to do. That's very long-term. It's not in the near future, but I'm taking the learnings that I'm taking right now and hopefully can translate that into something else in the future.
That's cool, man. I saw when I was researching and prepping for this conversation, I saw you used to be a basketball coach.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Is that an area where you feel like this could go?
Yeah, basketball for sure. Yeah, definitely basketball. Basketball and poker. I'm a big gambler, so I love all things around that. So maybe one of those areas in the future.
That's cool, man. Well, dude, I'm excited for you. This has been a lot of fun, dude. It's good to catch up with you.
Yeah, man. Dude, this is great. This is awesome. I appreciate it, man.
What would be your last meal on earth?
Definitely Buffalo Wild Wings, boneless wings, garlic parmesan with extra ranch. It just always hits for me when I'm having a bad day.
Bro, you were ready.
Yeah, it's always that.
You were ready.
It's always that.
Dude, you knew. You knew. It's like you were planning your last meal.
Well, like once a month you have a really bad day. Well, I don't know. It depends. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And so when you have that really shitty day, you gotta have that meal you go to, and that's it for me.
Dude, I like it. I like it. You're the first person who has said, almost everyone is like, there's this really small local restaurant,
No.
or my grandma always makes this lasagna. You are like Buffalo Wild Wings, garlic parmesan, boneless, say less.
Yeah, that's